our visioning is going to have to be a lot more inventive. Now, fortunately, we have what I like to call California spirit. Now, that may sound really hokey, but ask the man who wrote the book on California, literally. And he says, the culture of California has two striking characteristics: the willingness of a people to abandon the old ways, and the willingness with which people will try new forms and modes, and the inventiveness which they show in devising such modes and forms. And he wrote that in 1949. It's still pretty relevant today. Or as I like to put it, there's a saying by the British, no less, it won't work and we know because we haven't tried it. Well, if you look through the history of California, a more apt motto for us might be, it will work and we know because we're about to try it, right? Now what does a stance like that betoken, right? Positive visioning, the cornerstone of transitioning, okay? This is what it all comes down to. It's all psychological, okay? Let me give you an example. Here's the classic oil bell curve, right? Now what's so awful about this graph? I mean, aside from the fact that I drew this by hand, right? Is that it's going down, right? Down is not usually good. And unless this license plate rim has lied to us, right? Fewer toys means we lose, right? No one wants to contemplate a future where we lose, right? Well, okay, what if I flip the graph upside down? And we call this a graph of lifestyle sustainability in years. How long can we continue at our current rate without having to change things, right? It used to be that it well exceeded our lifetime, even our grandchildren's lifetime. And then it started going down a little bit, and now we're starting to worry about the world our grandchildren will inherit, and pretty soon we're worried about the world our children will inherit. And then we get down to where we start to get really worried because it's going to happen with our lifetimes. So now we're at the bottom, right? We're all miserable and angst-ridden because our lifestyle sustainability has never been lower, right? Well, as we inevitably transition away from oil, guess what? That's going to have to go back up. And on the other end of this, suddenly, we're a lot more secure. Okay, so you're probably thinking, yeah, nice try, right? Sure, it'll be sustainable, right? But it'll be sustainably lame, right? Well, let me clue you into a little lesson about human nature. Remember those advertisers that were so effective in tearing down social capital by playing on our individualism, right? Well, what they understood is that what humans really want is social distinction among their peers, right? Keeping up with the Joneses, right? But keeping what up with the Joneses? It doesn't matter. Whatever the Joneses are up to, we want to be up with that, right? We crave the social distinction so much, we will use whatever framework is remotely convenient to do this in. So if there's an overabundance of cheap manufactured goods lying around, that's great. We can have a race to see who can accumulate the most of these, right? But if sustainability and powering down becomes the watchword of the day, right? The Joneses have you over for dinner and they're like, oh, look, did you realize we made all these vegetables in our own backyard? And oh, look at the electricity monitor. We're actually generating more electricity from our solar panels than we're using right now. And you go home and you're like, oh man, those guys, we're going to show them, right? The point is, you know, we lost a lot in social capital and yet we didn't seem to notice, right? We were too obsessed with the material gains. Well, it can work the other way too, okay? So how do we get to a lower energy state, right? Does anyone recognize this sort of graph from high school chemistry, right? Equilibriums, energy barriers, right? So the truth is, we don't know what the exact route is, right? You can try things, okay? So your life might start off here, right? You're in a routine, you're in an equilibrium, because any change to your life is going to require you to put some extra energy into it, okay? Has anyone ever started a hobby, like, you know, you start playing guitar, right? You get all excited about it, you spend $300 on it, and you go buy the book and you start practicing every night, right? You're putting in this energy, right? You're now in a higher energy state because it's taking a lot more effort. But eventually, nothing really comes of it, and there's no spontaneous motivation to do it. There's only your willpower. And, you know, so you made it to about here, and then it starts to wane, and you're kind of back where you started, only now you've got a guitar in your closet, right? So you didn't go over a tipping point, right? But some changes, they do take you over a tipping point, okay? Let's take the farmer's market as an example, right? That took obviously a lot of effort to get it organized in the first place. And if you're an average inner sunset shopper, it takes a lot of effort to go to. I mean, you have to plan to go on Sunday morning, you have to get up, you have to buy the vegetables that are in season, right? It's not as convenient. But let's say you get the energy up and you start going, and eventually, since everyone else is going too, the farmer's market becomes the place to be, right? And you're just going there to meet your friends now, right? And you start organizing the rest of your life around going to the farmer's market. Okay? You're not even having to think about it anymore. It's just what you do. And what you're on, now you're on the other side of this curve. You're sliding down to a new equilibrium. Okay? So that's what energy descent is like. It's not going to be spontaneous, at least not unless we wait until it's far too late. We have to be experimenting and trying out new things, and you know, some of them are going to take us over a tipping point, some of them aren't, right? Which brings me to, this is Rob Hopkins, the founder of Transition. He included what he calls the cheerful disclaimer that transition is not prescriptive. It's not telling you what to do. It's a social experiment on a massive scale, and nobody knows if it's going to work, okay? But we do know that the governments will be too late, individuals will be too little, and if we act as communities, it might be just enough, just in time. So I have my own little modified version of this, which is that it's a social experiment on a community scale, actually. And while we don't know if it will work, the beauty of the community scale is that nothing is too big to fail. And therefore, nothing is too big to try. All right, thank you. So I'll hand it back to Adam.